All right. So create an impact together, 20 stories in 2020. I'm obviously not gonna go through every single story. We'll try to be quick, but I will post the full stories later on the article so that you guys can actually read the different stories that we had this year. So for those who haven't met me, my name is Dahee. I'm the one who started UX Rescue this year. So for those who are not actively involved in UX Rescue, who are we? We are a global initiative that helps organizations and social enterprises, and we provide UX services to organizations and social enterprise who couldn't access them otherwise. So we have over, at the moment, we have 1698 volunteers signed up across the world. And I believe everyone is really eager to help the organization. So just 2 more people and we'll be hitting the 1700. So how we started, it all started from the question of, am I really making an impact? So we are making an impact at the workplace, outside of workplace, but while I've been traveling the world, when I had a gap year, I learned that I wanted to create an impact using the UX skill I had because I felt like it was such a powerful skill that we have. And there are just so many things that we can help with and that needs some help from everyone. So that's the idea that started UX Rescue. And I started talking to people at UX industry to run the ideas and see what they think. And at first, I was like, I'm not sure if this is gonna fly, but let's just do the proof of concept. And boom, this is how fast we grew. So the first week, we had 56 people signed up. A month, 168, 3 months, over 500, 5 months in, over 700. And now today is the exactly 8 months since we started UX Rescue. And now we have 2 people less than 1700. When I was making this slide, I was really hoping that we'd have 2 more people so that we can actually say that we have 1700, but we'll get there by the end of today or tomorrow. I have no doubt. And we don't know how much more we are going to grow, but I am really certain that we are only going to grow from here on. So I really couldn't do this managing the UX Rescue and all these volunteers myself. So I have this beautiful co-parents, which is 6 other beautiful co-parents from different countries. So I pulled a bit of stories from its co-parents. And Kriti, I'm gonna put you on the spot since you're here. If you don't mind just reading out loud your story really quick, that'd be great.
Wow, Dahee, that was a surprise. You really put me in the spot. But sure. So yeah, I think when I joined UX Rescue, it was March or May this year, and I was really struggling to break into the job market. And I thought I really need to get some real world experience. So I raised my hand for a couple of projects, and I interacted a lot with Dahee, and that's when I realized that, Dahee is really interested in helping people grow. So I started sharing with her the kind of areas I'm interested in growing. And she told me that use UX Rescue as your playground. And then there was no stopping. Since then, I've learned so much. I've collaborated with so many designers all over the world, designers and researchers. And I've realized that so much learning can be done by working on a real life project together. And along with that, I think there has been that immense, that feeling of giving back, which, rarely comes at work when we're designing e-commerce websites, I guess. So yeah, I think, thank you, Dahee, and thank you, Dahee, for giving us this platform.
Thank you for being a part of UX Rescue and sticking with UX Rescue as well. I've learned so much from working it, not only creative, but also a lot of co-parents and volunteers as well. I don't know if you guys had a grasp of the stories of other co-parents as well, but they all have different stories. But in the end, we are all here to make social impact using the skill that we have and the skills that we want to develop. So all of us have different stories, but at the same time, we are doing it all together, which makes UX Rescue stronger. So as we are talking about different stories but growing together, we make sure that we have the same North Stars that we work together towards. So these are our 3 guiding stars, which is first, social impact. This is definitely why we are doing what we are doing. Second is design impact, which is how we chose the method that we chose to create the social impact. And then lastly, design awareness. We will be talking more about this at the article. And if you have any questions, you can share the questions and I'll be answering it later as well. And the next thing, to make sure that we actually get to these 3 guiding stars and then we can grow together, we are just constantly iterating. It's iteration after iteration after iteration. And this is one of the examples that we are doing as an iteration of the project manager processes. So at UX Rescue, every project we do, we try to document things that are going on, the pain points, and how we could improve so that we can provide even better tools and processes to support the social impact that we are trying to create and also support the growth that all the volunteers at UX Rescue are trying to achieve. So the next one is organizations that we just cannot exist without. And we are extremely thankful to have all these organizations across the globe who are in many different sectors, like helping children, promoting diversity in race, helping wildlife in Australia, Humanitarian Act, who are helping people who got affected by natural disasters in Nepal, and etc. So far in 2020, we've been helping over 20 organizations, and we are only going to have more of this. So the next story is related to our third goal, which is design awareness. So when we are working with these organizations, fair enough, since they are not really familiar with the concept of UX. I mean, let's be honest, like outside of UX practitioners, a lot of people are not familiar with this concept, and you probably have this question a lot. What is it that you do? What is this UX thing that you do? So this is one of the things that we face a lot at UX Rescue as well. When the organizations reach out to us, they just tell us, get us a pretty website. And our role here is to tell them to, okay, we can get you a pretty website, but we can get you something better, which is the website that works and the website that will guide the users to do what you want them to do, what you want them to see, which is to see what they are doing, their mission, the values that they are creating, and why the users, which is usually potential donors, volunteers, to be involved in the organizations that they are creating amazing impact with. So this is just a little quote that I got from one of the stakeholders that we worked with. So I pulled this specific quote because I really love the word that he used, and I'm just going to read it out loud for him. Whenever he looks at the website that UX Rescue created, I feel the love of your work. It's nice, beautiful, clear, and built with love from UX Rescue. This website has been a life-changing story for our organization. It really is something we could achieve only through your tireless work. Thank you very much, UX Rescue team. And maybe this is because I was actively watching what was being done at this project. Every time I read this quote, I just get a little chill. But Gift Angels Foundation is an organization that is doing absolutely amazing work in their area to help children in marginalized environment to actually get them to get decent education and decent living standard. And for us to be able to have us to partake the impact that they are creating, it's been just absolutely amazing experience for us. And imagine we have 20 more of this year, and we are going to have even more. So the next one is volunteers. So this is just a representative pinpoint of where our volunteers are located. We obviously have so many more of this. In fact, we have 23 time zones at our Slack channel, so that can show you, that can kind of show you how many people are located in many different locations across the globe. So Alankar, I believe you're here. So Alankar's story really showed what kind of impact that UX Rescue can provide you as a volunteer. So Alankar, if you don't mind kind of sharing your story a little bit based on what you shared with me earlier.
Sure, but I have an audience. Both my sons are also watching this, so there might be a bit of, sound effects. So yeah, I am someone who has a gap in my CV. I took a break from my career because I became a new mom. So early this year, before the COVID hit, I wanted to start looking for a job. And I had the opportunity to go to some on-sites, but then what I realized was I wasn't really, closing the deal. And one of the feedbacks I got was that most of my portfolio pieces were hypothetical ideas. So it was very difficult for me to show impact of what I brought. So so obviously the advice that was given to me was that you have to find some real life problems. Coincidentally, around the same time, I saw this post on LinkedIn about UX Rescue. And the first thing that was very, very, the biggest pull for me was, like Dahee mentioned, this was an organization that would do the hard work of talking to other organizations, selling them the idea of what user experience is, which I wouldn't have to do. Someone like me who's petrified of networking, that was tremendous. So yeah, I mean, and then to be involved in work that is of very, very big impact. These are all organizations that are working with disadvantaged communities. So yeah, it's been such a wonderful experience. And I think I am much more confident in my job search journey than I was probably back in March. So thank you so much for this.
All right, thank you so much, Alankar. As Alankar said, we try to provide at UX Rescue, I try to provide all this experience that you get to meet people and then get to have real world experience. And through the mentorship, the peers, team setting, support with the tools, and etc. So a bit more story. I believe Amelia is here. Is Amelia here? So Amelia, I'm gonna put you on the spot if you can read your story.
Yeah, so I'm a co-PM for the Mara Youth Project, which is bringing Mara Youth to a place of wellbeing and creating a website for that community. And when we were talking about impact, it was I was thinking less about myself and more about the impact that we had actually on the community that we were working with. And what we've heard from the stakeholder is that they've been so grateful for what we've provided, not just in the technical skills. Obviously we've developed wireframes and we've gone through the process and we've done some really interesting research and observation, but actually because we're dedicated to this project, we're the only one in their team actually that's dedicated to this. It's meant that they've had some really, really interesting conversations. So we've been able to progress this project and kind of work through the grey with them in a way that they wouldn't have been able to do. And it's given them that opportunity to have these conversations. So in terms of impact, it was less about the website and actually really interestingly more about what the process and the conversations actually elicited from the team.
Thank you, Amelia. As Amelia highlighted, we try to bring different skills that we have even outside of tangible deliverables while we work with stakeholders. And it's just so great to hear all these things from the stakeholders as well. All right. So Ava, this is a story from our mentor. Ava is unfortunately not here because she's on the other side of the world, and this time zone would just not work for her. But she joined the UX Rescue because this initiative is representative of what design culture is about, which is empathy, support, and having a positive impact. It brings together two aspects that she treasures: social impact and design education. It's been an enriching experience to connect with design practitioners with diverse backgrounds from all over the world and to teach them good practices of the industry in a real life context. Eva is one of the mentors that we have, and I know that we have a lot of mentors, mentees, culture growing in UX industry, which is absolutely amazing. And we are UX Rescue here as well. We are trying to promote more and more of this culture so that people can actually teach, learn, and grow together. So for those who are not involved at UX Rescue, you might be wondering, I hope you are wondering how to get involved. So you can get involved to be a mentor, to be a volunteer, or if you don't have a time but you believe in the value and you want to support however you can always support us by buying us a coffee at our website. And the coffees that you guys buy for us, we'll be using to you will be using to provide the websites for the organizations that we work with when they cannot afford or cannot access them. So exciting parts, some exciting plans that we have for next year. Hopefully next year will be a better year than 2020 for all of us. So obviously we got way more projects coming in our way, and we got a lot of exciting projects regarding environment, disability, and obviously equality and many different areas. And next one is mentorship program. We are currently building the mentorship program to actually have a structured program and to provide provide quality program for everyone who's involved, for mentors and mentees as well, and workshops and meetups as well. Like this, we'll be having more meetups to talk about what we've done and things that educational materials, and also workshops for everyone to be involved and actually get the hands-on workshop, hands-on experience on a shorter time frame. And lastly, we'll be expanding our family. I don't know if you noticed, but at UX Rescue, we try to have this family feel community. So we call our people co-parents, relatives, and this will be still an open area for everyone to be involved if you like to be involved more than a project-based. So those are 19 stories that I have prepared. And the next story will be a case study of our project, African Youth Voice. So, Kriti?
Thank you, Dahee, for sharing those beautiful stories. It was such a good reflection to the year that's been 2020. And I think a lot of us are glad that you started UX Rescue, because the time we had in our hands really helped us grow our skills and get exposed to all these beautiful projects. So thank you. Let's get started with Project African Youth Voices. This is one of the projects that was done by myself, Dahee, and Imavi. So African Youth Voices is a platform for youth where podcast series are created by youth for youth. And it's a platform for where voices can be heard, reach to other youth people, and they can have beautiful collaborations amidst each other and actually talk about issues that matter. So from UX Rescue, 3 of us were there. Dahee was the project manager and UX researcher. Imavi was the lead UX designer, and I was also the UX designer. From African Youth Voices, we had the founder, Eric, and Reha, who was the Chief Operations Officer. We became a team that turned into a family and friends. We really had fun working on this project, and we took our stakeholders along the journey, and that helped us, thank you, Dahee, that helped us build a beautiful collaboration with them, listening to them and solving problems for them. So the problem that needed to be solved was that African Youth Voices needed a website to build credibility and to engage their audience. We digged a bit deeper to understand why they needed a website, and we understood that at the moment they were reaching out to very few countries in Africa, and they wanted to expand their audiences across the continent. They had active social channels like Facebook and Twitter, but when the listeners visited these platforms, there was not one website which would help them build more trust and recognition. And most importantly, the website would help the audiences, the organization receive donations so that they can function better and provide better services for the podcast. Yep, so we'll start with the project management, and I'll hand over to our PM Dahee.
All right. So for our project management, we mostly use Notion as a tool. Actually, at UX Rescue, we use Notion for most of our projects. So since it was supposed to be 4 weeks project, it was very essential to plan things in advance. So we can have our deadline and we can hold ourselves accountable. And as an extent of that, we had these tasks planned out once we identify what's needed to be done after stakeholder interview. So as you can see, we used Kanban board, which is an amazing tool that will allow you to categorize each task or each item based on the category of your need. In our case, was the task status. And on here, we not only use this as a project tracking tool, but we also use this as a place to kind of store everything. We did our research here, design here, so everything that we need to get the project going was here, which really helped us with the efficiency of it. So since it's a volunteer project, accountability is always one of the things that matter the most. So how did we keep each other accountable? First, we did the weekly stand-ups with African Youth Voice and UX Rescue team, and we recorded the minutes of the meeting to make sure that we are clear on action items and we followed through them within the given time. Similar, we did a follow-up email for the African Youth Voice team for them to follow on their action items. And we held constant communication on Slack. And the side benefit of all this was we not only managed to keep each other accountable, but we also became really good friends outside of the project as well. So Kriti, do you want to walk through the process that we took?
Yeah, so to broadly touch upon our process, we started with research, then hopped onto the wireframes, made the prototypes, did the testing, and then reiterated and finalized the designs. It was, as Dahee mentioned, it was a very tight timeline project. So we had to ensure that we're moving quite fast-paced with this. And yeah, I think we can dive into the process research, Dahee.
All right, so for the research, before the stakeholder interview, we first came up with the questions that we needed to know on this interview to make sure that we can come up with all these tasks in advance. So what we did at first was we categorized them, and then on each category, we came up with the items that we are going to ask, and we put them in a checkpoint. And we also kind of delegate the times, assigned time for each categories as well. And while Imavi was facilitating this stakeholder interview beautifully, me and Kriti were taking notes, and we are checking off items off of our interview script. And once we did the stakeholder interview, then got the findings that Kriti has mentioned about why they needed what they asked for, which was the website, I jump into the desk research to find what's out there that I can find without doing any unnecessary research. So I look at the survey report and I watch the documentary that Eric, the founder of African Youth Voice, has created to learn more and familiarize ourselves with the issues that are going on and items that we should mention on the website. And the next one was comparative analysis. This was to identify what kind of items should be added on this kind of website, the design feel of the website that stakeholders will be happy with, and also the kind of target audience will be familiar with. So for the competitive analysis, even though it's a website for the podcast, we not only look at the website for the podcast, but we look at the other websites as well. So as you can see on the left, we look at the website schemes to check the color scheme of the website that we are going to design. And we obviously look at the website that had podcast to see how the domain, the leaders at the domain, which is podcast, is doing, and how users, when they look at the website for the podcast, like what would they expect. And for the target audience, especially because we are not really familiar with the target audience, which are the people who are living in Africa and who are youth. So we look at the websites they will look at that are more geared towards the youth in Africa. So from there, we came up with what we needed to include in design. And Mavi, if you want to go through the design process we took.
Great. Go into the next slide. Thanks, Dahee. Awesome. So as you can see, guys, this was sort of the user flow that I designed. So from the response that I gathered in the stakeholder interview and the competitive analysis, I made a visual flow of, how customers and community members would sort of navigate through the site. So basically the stakeholders really wanted to focus on 4 elements, and that was, obviously the homepage, which is their landing page, the about us, to sort of teach everyone about the brand and who they are as individuals, and also the podcast page to promote their podcast, and support us, which is really about, like Kriti mentioned, really focusing on sort of getting the donations and moving forward from there as well. In the next slide, I also designed the wireframes. So in these wireframes, I kind of wanted to communicate the functionality of the website and not necessarily the final visual layout. So the key areas I sort of focused on was really around structure, so the flow of the content, navigation, how easy users can kind of navigate around the website. Information hierarchy was an important one because they had a lot of content. So how effective and efficient is the information portrayed? And also interactions, trying to make it, the website, tell a bit more of a story. So transitions and all that are quite smoother in between pages as well. From there, we kind of moved into the prototype, or I moved into the prototype. And pretty much in the prototyping phase, this was all about sort of iterating on the design decisions that we kind of made throughout the process. I felt as though designing this, it wasn't quite there yet, but we use this prototype to run certain task scenarios in usability testing specifically. So we were able to sort of uncover a whole lot of things in that stage as well. So Dahee, did you want to take them through usability testing?
Yep, sure. Thank you, Mavi. So as Mavi mentioned, the objective was to identify usability issues, and we wanted to ensure that the design delivers clear messages. So as a methodology, we use Usability to perform unmoderated research session. So while we are recruiting the participants, as we mentioned, since we didn't really have much access to the target audience, we work very closely with the stakeholders from African Youth Voice. So first we identify who we needed. And then from there, they feel, I just kind of block the information here for their confidentiality, but they fill in the table for us to look at and then see who to reach out for the usability testing recruitment. But it would be really weird if things go perfectly as you plan all the time. So it was the same case for African Youth Voice. Since people weren't really used to usability testing or doing any sort of activity like that, we had a very low completion rate on the unmoderated session. So I don't know if some of you guys caught this difference, but since we had not enough people from the unmoderated session, we ended up adding 3 more people for the moderated session to make up for the tasks that we missed, and we ended up doing them over the Zoom. So after the testing was done, all the transcribes, I put them in table form, and I put text on each inside, like either verbal or behavioral. I put them in text form to make sure that they are connected to the right page. That was the feedback was about. And also I put the urgency, and I assigned each feedback to the people who will be in charge of working on them. And when they are done, when the assignee was done with the working on that feedback, they just simply marked done on the urgency part. So working this way, it really helped us on efficiency, and then help us to kind of increase the pace of our work from testing analysis to the iteration. So final design, Mavi?
Great. So, and this was a fun part, designing, going through each response from the usability testing. We designed this website in Wix. If you wanted to go into the next page, yes. I'll wait till this loads so you can sort of see how the design looks. So the reason why we decided to sort of go with Wix was because it was a very user-friendly platform. It kind of allowed us to design accordingly to what our vision is, as well as, most importantly, our stakeholders' vision. And as you can see, we redesigned a little bit of those wireframes a bit differently. We were actually able to also use plugins. Specifically, you can see this one down here is the integration of Apple Podcasts and also SoundCloud into the website. And this was great because kind of also challenged me a little bit in this area, because we were trying to integrate it all together. It did take me a while, but it was great because we were able to really replicate Apple Podcast into the website, just to have that broad or to have that more consistency as well. Wix actually allowed us to generate a lot of structure in the site, and also allow the content to flow a little bit more cleaner. And finally, allowing Kriti, Dahee and myself to sort of collaborate together and test designs along the way. So we're able to sort of send each other the links, play around, see if it makes sense. And Wix was really great for this site. So we were really happy with it, and our stakeholders were stoked about it as well. So it was very nice.
And we also added flyers for our stakeholders to have a consistent visual language for their podcasts. Dahee, if you could just go to the previous slide. So over here, as you can see in the center screenshot, the podcasts and the visual language, there was a visual inconsistency in the way the podcasts had been launched to the audiences. So we thought from UI perspective to give them something that is editable, and they can then launch it further and edit it. So this was on Canva, and we are trying to convince them to implement this to the website as well, now that it's handed over to them. Yeah, moving on to our takeaways from the project. I think for me, most importantly, it was to learn from Dahee and Imavi how they applied their learned skills to the project. And the next one was adapting to project the changing timelines, because often we think we will be able to finish the project in the time that's estimated, which was a month for this, but it did end up sort of stretching way more than that. And then trying to balance that with our work as well was something that I learned, and probably would help me better with the next projects.
Great. And mine, just on the back of that, what you said, Kriti, being around passionate people was a great motivator as well during 2020. So both my key takeaways kind of go hand in hand. I developed a passion for UI design, which led me also to sort of dive deeper into the back end of the website. So bringing out my curiosity and trying to figure out all those challenging aspects that kind of came along the way. But all in all, really enjoyed working with you guys, and definitely won't forget this project, that's for sure.
And for my end, the first one was to expand the horizon. So I don't think I would have ever had this chance to work with an organization that is creating podcasts to raise the voice of African youth if it wasn't for UX Rescue. So I'm really grateful for that. And along with that, also the global friendship. Yeah, I genuinely think I would have ever had a chance to meet Kriti, Imavi, Eric, and Rhea if it wasn't for UX Rescue. So I think we built a really good friendship out of it. I remember at one point, since I was a PM, like I'm supposed to take notes and then send out the notes after the meeting. But in the end of the meeting, we were laughing so much that I was having a hard time remembering those things to write down. So like after the meeting, I had to sit down for 5 minutes to remember what was the action item because we were just laughing so much. So this was just amazing project that I will probably never forget. So
and that's from our last meeting, and you can see our happy sad faces. It was a bit of we were so used to meeting each other every week that it was hard to say goodbye, but we had a fun time. And yeah, we hope that all future projects go as smooth as this one. And yeah, thank you for listening.
all right, now it's time for the questions. Anyone has any questions? If you guys can leave it on the chat, or you guys can just unmute yourself and ask it yourself as well. All right, any questions?
Hello, my name is Franchette from Melbourne. I've also just started entering the UX world, and so far from the projects that I've done, and I realized that there's not many people or clients that do appreciate the value of a designer. So you said you guys sort of create awareness of design. So how do you sort of approach that?
Do you guys want to answer that, or do you want me to answer that?
Anyone?
If you have an answer, go for it, Dahee. We're still thinking, I guess.
Right. Yeah, so at UX Rescue, when we first have a chat with the organization, you're very right, not everyone. Rather than design, I think they don't get the value of research. So they just want the final, like the beautiful design right away. And they go like, oh, why do we need to talk to these people? Like, I know what I want. So in that case, like depends on their personality. I think we try to present different data stories and things like that will really work for them. So sometimes like we just briefly talk to them, we give them example of why UX matters, or we give them a story of why UX matters, or we give them data of why UX matters. So I think that's how we approach.
Okay.
Also,
so
sorry, just on the back of that as well, I feel like as UX designers, our role is to also educate our customers and our clients to sort of tell them exactly what our role is and the importance of it as well. So I think having that perspective in your mind when you go into projects, I think that also helped us as well, especially with this African Youth Voices, when we kind of explain to them our story, who we are and what our role is. That really allowed us to allowed them to actually kind of be a bit more vulnerable and be like, okay, we're happy to do, usability testing, figure out what other people want. So I think having that mindset as well of educating people and taking them along your journey as well as a designer really helps.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks
Frances.
for the question, Franchette.
So next question is from Saba. Thank you, Saba, for being here. And so Saba's question is, what were some of the challenges that we had on the project?
I
think I can start.
Oh, you go.
I think we can go.
Okay, you guys are so quick on this question.
I think some of the personal challenges for me were that, so when I raised my hand for this project, which is something I think a lot of us would experience, when I raised my hand for this project, I did not have any employment at that time. But as soon as the project started, I got an employment offer as well. So then I had to, share with Imavi and Dahee, and Imavi and Dahee were very supportive. And I think it's helped helpful when you have supportive team members and they understood, and I still wanted to be a part of this project. So they were more active and I was more passive. But being a part of a supportive team is really helpful because they know that you want to grow and learn, but you have time constraints. So I think like if you have challenges, then knowing how to address them properly is important, like sharing the truth with your team members, and then they'll see how they can help you with it. So yeah, Imavi, you're next.
So that's really good. I think on the back of that, I think also trying to figure out the time zones was a little bit of a challenge for us, trying to align, especially when, you know, we're all in the same boat, like we all, you know, we're out of work. So trying to come together and figure out a perfect time, because everything just happens at the same time. So I found that was a bit of a challenge, but you know, it's great when you have a good team because everyone just bounces off ideas, and you know, if you can't make it for one session, there's always someone taking minutes and fill you in. So that was a challenge that we definitely overcame quite quickly.
Yeah, I think mine was quite similar to Kriti. I actually got employed like while I was on AYB project too, I believe. So I was moving country from Australia to Korea while I was on the project. And if I couldn't really be on the tasks, I'll just let the team know, and it was always taken care of by someone. So yeah, the communication was a key. So the next question from Julio is, how did we manage to keep the motivation going in the project?
I think that wasn't a struggle somehow, you know, I think because we were like all very pally, and even the stakeholders were quite friendly. So I don't think that went from my end. I don't think that went missing. Like it was constantly there. It was like meeting with friends every Monday evening, you know.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there was no lack of motivation in this project. If anything, we were like, should we do it earlier? But nah, nothing. Dahee, did you have any to add?
So AYB, African Youth Voice, is a really lucky project, and this definitely doesn't happen in all the
Don't say
projects.
that.
we're lucky to have each other, but mostly because this is a way shorter project with a smaller group. Everyone is lucky to have each other in other projects as well, but the time difference and also the lengthy project definitely doesn't help as much. So in those cases, like I try to make sure that the team has set the timeline, and then you can actually see that if you don't do your work, that will affect the whole timeline of the whole project. So that's one of the things that we do at UX Rescue in other projects to make sure that everyone stays motivated and then get their work done in time. So I hope that answers your question, Julio. The next one is from Megan. Will we establish minimum standard system for project managers? Megan, like that, we use a tool like Notion to stay organized and ensure everyone is on track. So for example, having a UX Rescue standard onboarding packet for PM and team members would be awesome. This is really interesting question because we are actually working on it. Kriti is in charge of this with another co-parent. So we will be definitely having a standardized process and packet as well.
Yeah, that's a very well-timed question because it's only last week when we were doing the customer journey mapping experience of PMs in UX Rescue, we realized that this is a common pain point and we are going to be addressing that 2021 onwards.
All right. Any other questions? And Megan, if that's something that you like to be involved in, feel free to reach out to Kriti. So a question from Alankar: how did we justify or convey your design decisions to the stakeholders?
That's a good question. They were actually quite flexible in their design decisions. I think this is also sort of like a very rare moment. They were happy for us to sort of design according to their guidelines. They had a few guidelines. They just wanted to include, you know, obviously having the credibility of their site, of their podcast, and also a donations page. And then they gave us a color scheme. That was pretty much the highest level of what they gave us. So for us, we kind of designed according to that. And every week we bounced off ideas with them and really tried to figure out whether, you know, they gelled with things well or not. But they were quite easy. I think Kriti and Dahee, I don't know if you want to add anything else onto that, but usually I've come across some very difficult people that don't really know what they want, but then they do, and they don't know how to communicate it. But for us, we got really lucky. They were quite flexible with their design decisions and things.
And I think one of the things that we did that really helped us felt like, you know, it was really easy sailing, was the stakeholder interview. We really did put effort and time into building the stakeholder interview questionnaire beforehand to make sure that we ask things that we need in advance, so that we have everything that we need to start the work, and we won't be making much changes from the stakeholder side, and we'll only be making changes from users' feedback. So I think that really helped, and we also the rapport that we built with the stakeholders really helped them to feel like heard, and then help them to feel that they are actively involved in the design processes as well.
And just on the back of that, I remember the stakeholder interview, we asked like the same question 5 times. Like we asked why, like in various different ways, just so they could trigger different elements or features or anything that would come up in their mind, whether they said it differently, for us to sort of trigger a moment as well. So I think on the back of that question, we always made sure when we made it a significant design decision, we would raise it on the Monday meeting catch up. So they were across all the changes, and they could give us their input along the way, and there was no big sudden change at the end. So it was quite smooth sailing that way as well.
And I think also doing the usability testing really helped, because it was the first time that the stakeholders were being exposed to such a process, and they were quite excited to see how we involved potential users and current users in the process. And that sort of validated, and strengthened our arguments for the design decisions as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, another question from Berenice. Did the clients get, quote unquote, iterative development? Do you guys
I think, yeah, I mean, I think they did. Like, Dahee, do you want to answer that question as a project manager?
So when I was showing the findings from the usability testing, so I usually have the report, but in this case, I just took the verbatim and then behavioral insights straight from the testing, so that it will have a more of a human feel, like, you know, they just ask their friend what they think of the website. So I think that really helped, and things that we said, I talked to them in a way that I'm not really suggesting them, like, I hope I was coming off that way. But I was more of asking them what they think. So it was more of a, so we got this feedback from participant A. What do you guys think of this? And obviously, you know, as a researcher in this project, I was giving them a little nudge as well at time to time. But yeah, like rather than coming off like I'm imposing some solutions on them, I was trying to work with them and then hear what they think, to make sure that they don't really feel like resistant or hesitant to the iterative processes that we were taking.
Yeah, definitely. I think they also learned a lot as well in the way that we sort of communicated our findings, things that they didn't really even think of. I think that was a big standout as well. So I think that they did.
Right. Any other questions? All right. I think if you guys have any other questions, just shoot me a question on Slack. You can shoot any of us a question on Slack. We are all ears. And if you guys like to be involved in any kind of things that I presented before the African Youth Voice, just chat to me on Slack, or just keep an eye out on Slack. Just a heads up, we will be closing down UX Rescue, which is funny to say because we are very virtual. But we strongly recommend people not to work on UX Rescue or keeping an eye out on UX Rescue over the holidays, because work-life balance matters. And everyone deserves a holiday this year. So yeah, keep an eye out, but don't keep an eye out over the holiday. And just a reminder on the chat as well, help us improve UX Rescue's meetup. We are planning to do more of this next year. So make sure that you take this survey that Evelyn shared on the chat. And yeah, spread the word, take a part at UX Rescue, work with us. Let's create an impact together. And yeah, I will see you guys next year. Thank you so much for being here today.
We're right on time. Well done with timing.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Right, thank you.